You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Welcome into the show before the show, the official podcast of Minor League Baseball. I am Sam Dykstra, again, introing this week because I am all alone. No, I'm not. I'm actually joined by my two colleagues again this week. If you listened to our podcast earlier this week, it was just me for a lot of it. We were a little bit delayed because of international issues for very good reasons. And that is because, as I said on the show, Tyler Mon was in Taiwan calling the World Baseball Classic, and now he is back with us. He's in Denver, but he is back now with us on the podcast alongside Benjamin Hill, who's also here sitting to my left. Tyler, welcome back. How was the trip? I think we all know how the trip went because we could literally hear you the entire time.
You could see me and hear me and the magic of television. I just want to say you, sir, have done a phenomenal job the last two episodes introing this show before the show. Although Ben and I did not slander you. We know what you were doing in Florida.
My lawyer said you did, and
we
if
know.
you haven't received your notice, then it's coming. Yeah, you will be served soon. Just because you were out of the country doesn't mean you can escape the law.
I guess we'll find out. I'm pretty sure it's exactly what being out of the country means, isn't it? From what movies and TV have taught me. Yeah, man, it was great. We wrapped up Pool A in a wild 5-way tie between all the teams out in Pool A. We went into it saying, like, man, I think this is the most evenly matched pool of them all for the opening round of the World Baseball Classic. And then everybody literally split 10 games that we did. But it was amazing. The atmosphere was incredible. Saw some really good prospect talent. Saw some terrific games of baseball, ate some good food, had a lot of fun on TV. It was a dream, man. It was as cool as anything I've literally ever done in my life. It was awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, just watching it, that was one of my favorite pools to watch because the atmosphere was so insane, especially the night games, which were morning games for us, but it seemed like the place was packed. Seeing, especially the Yu Chang call that you had, was like instantly one of the highlights of the tournament because of what Yu Chang did, but also the way you worked the crowd for that. Kind of take us through that moment and what it's like calling such a big moment in a home city, in a home country like that for a guy who Yu Chang had his own interesting story going into the tourney.
Yeah, that's really the crazy thing was Yu Chang became the biggest storyline of Pool A, and he was essentially not going to be on that team when everything first came out. He back in January had requested to not be selected for the team because he was trying to fight for a job in Red Sox camp and didn't want to be distracted, I guess, by being picked for the World Baseball Classic team, and people freaked out. And part of the reason they freaked out is Yu Chang in 2019 played in the Asian Baseball Championships for Chinese Taipei, which is the name of the team that competes for the island of Taiwan. And as a token for winning that, he was granted an exemption essentially from his compulsory military service. So he only served like 9 days of what should have been a 4-month military service, but it was on the condition that he continued to play for the national team for the next 5 years. So when he asked to not be selected, people kind of lost it, and sort of understandably so. But it was back-to-back nights in which Chinese Taipei had these mammoth crowds. They played Friday and Saturday night against Italy and then against the Netherlands. And the game against Italy, I thought, man, how is anything going to top that? We had 3 homers in that one. Tso Wei Lin, Yu Chang, and then Gungguan Giligalao, my favorite name in the history of humanity. And they hit homers and led that team to a win. And it was a huge win because Chinese Taipei had lost their first game. And then the next night, Yu Chang hits this grand slam, and I'm not sure I'll ever experience a moment that electric for the rest of my life. It was, 19,000 people, but a decibel reader in the stadium hit 118, which is essentially, as I was reading online, basically the same as standing next to a fire truck with its sirens blaring. That's 19,000 people in an open air stadium got that loud at that moment. And it was just the most electric, earth moving kind of moment that I could have imagined. And what sort of you said, take us through the call in the moment. 2-1, a swing and another drive to deep left center field. Yu Chang has done it again. It's really weird because I actually remember, and I was telling a friend of the show and host of Ghosts of the Minors, Josh Jackson, about this the other day. I weirdly remember my mental process through like that entire call, which is very strange. But when that ball came off the bat, the first few days in Taiwan, we had seen a lot of stuff get hit to left, especially, but to left center as well, that just died. There was a lot of wind coming in from left, and the ball would just die. And so Xander Bogaerts hit a home run in one of the day games, and I noted on the call it was the first home run to left in a day game, and got roasted on the internet because out of context, that sounds like an insane thing to say. But that ballpark was playing really difficult for right-handed hitters. So Yu Chang gets into this ball, and at the start of the call, I didn't know how well he had hit it. So when I started that, I think I was pretty pedestrian sounding at the beginning, but I looked out in the outfield and Jurickson Profar's on left and Roger Bernardina's in center. And I noticed that Profar wasn't even moving and Bernardina was barely kind of getting himself going towards center field. And I thought to myself, like, oh, he might've gotten this. So in my head, I thought, you have to take this up now, but you can't take it up from 0 to 100 all at once. You have to take it up in stages. So you can hear in the call that I kind of progressively, everything I say, get a little bit more and more hyped. And the way I described it to our producer from MLB Network, Chris Bracey, is at the last second, because my call ends with Yu Chang has done it again because he homered the night before. The last second of that call, I thought to myself, when I say again, do I end that with my voice going down or with my voice going up? And ordinarily to end a highlight, your voice goes down. But I just felt like the moment called for ending on my voice going up. And it sort of functioned as, and this is what I said to our producer, that was like the launch of the firework. And then when I stopped talking and the crowd went nuts, that was like the firework exploding. And it just played so well because of that crowd. Like they were so incredible from night to night. And the passion that they brought, the chants, the drums, the songs. The first night they lost to Panama 12-5. They were getting waxed late in that game, and they got a home run, and instantly they were back at a 10. The passion from that fan base, and especially being the first pool to start, they just reintroduced the World Baseball Classic to fans and reintroduced Taiwanese baseball to fans. And it was something that I am forever extremely proud to have been a part of. And I don't know if I'll ever experience something like that again. And I said on the air, there are like 7+ billion people on the planet right now. I don't know if a human being was higher in that moment than Yu Chang was in that moment, being the hero in front of his home crowd and essentially winning that game for his team. So it was quite a night. It was the highlight of a week full of highlights.
Now, Tyler, obviously you were spending the bulk of your time at the ballpark, and baseball was the reason you were there. But, I've never been to Taiwan, and I imagine a lot of our listeners have not been there as well. So, what was it just like as a country to visit, and the little routines you got into in the terms of the hotels or transportation or restaurants or, just little cultural differences you noticed? What stood out about just being in this foreign country?
Yeah, it was really cool. I've been to Taiwan twice before for other baseball events, and nothing nearly on the scope or the scale of the Classic. And what I noticed this time around was that fans were everywhere. We stayed in a hotel that was probably a 10-minute drive from the ballpark, but there was a group of fans outside the hotel every single day, from the morning we walked out, or from the moment we walked out in the morning to the moment we got back at night. There were people there, and they just wanted to see you, and they just wanted to say hello and welcome to Taiwan, and they'd ask for an autograph from somebody like my broadcast color analyst Ryan Roland Smith, who played there for part of one season. And they were so polite and so respectful, but they were so excited about having an event in that city, in their homeland, that they could show off to the world. And it was so infectious. And especially, this time 3 years ago, we were all shut in our houses. The world was closed down, and none of us had any idea of what things would look like going forward. And to be back in a place where you could share your mutual love of something like baseball with people like those fans in Taiwan was amazing. Ryan and I would go for coffee every morning before we headed to the ballpark, and just walking down the street and seeing about people going about their days in a different city, in a different country, in a different part of the world. The way that the sun feels a little different when you wake up somewhere new, or the smells in a different city are always fascinating to me. And the ballpark experience was incredible. In Asia and in Latin America, this is really common too. Most stadiums will allow local vendors to kind of set up a food stand or a truck or, a merchandise table or whatever on the ballpark grounds. So you can walk into sort of the entry plaza area at Taichung Intercontinental Baseball Stadium. There are just little food tents that just line the whole plaza. So you can try, fried squid. You can have dumplings. You can have bubble tea. You can have all these different things that are local delicacies, and you can get them from local vendors. And I thought that was so cool. But just seeing the passion that they had, not only for their team, but for the sport of baseball. The last game that we have, Italy versus the Netherlands, which was essentially a play-in game, especially for the Netherlands, that was, a crowd of almost 7,000 people for two teams that are nowhere near where they're playing. And that was amazing. And the enthusiasm that they had, that the fans brought for every single game. It's just I noted this on a broadcast. The slogan for the very first World Baseball Classic was "Baseball spoken here." And it just felt like this was a reminder of that, of even though I might not be able to have a conversation with these people in their native language, we still all speak the same language of the thing that we love. And that was really neat. And having a ballpark experience in a place like that, and, the different smells and the different sights and different sounds is, if you ever get a chance to go to another country and watch baseball, it is certainly not an experience you'll regret.
Yeah, well, it's certainly an experience for all of us watching at home. And I know I said this on the pod that came out earlier this week, and I've said it to you before, and now I'm going to say it to your face, how proud we all are of you that you were the guy who got to do all that.
Oh, he said it to your face.
I said it to your face. You had to look me in the face.
You did say that like you were going to say something threatening.
Yeah.
Like I said this on the podcast. Now I'm going to say it to your face.
Say it to your face.
Oh, man,
I am going
Sam.
to sue you. No, we're just all super proud that it was you who got
buddy.
to call those games and take us through it, because they were exciting on their own. They would have been dramatic and all that kind of stuff, but like knowing it was you and you taking those moments, like we were talking about that Yu Chang homer, it's your pinned tweet now. So for anybody who hasn't seen it or hasn't heard you call it, check out Tyler Maughn's Twitter page at Tyler Maughan. It'll be the first tweet you see, and make sure you listen to that voice and take notes if you're trying to be a broadcaster yourself. Just don't come for Tyler's job.
I feel like, why
and
is
change
he,
your name
why is
to
he
Tyler
yelling so much?
Wan, because then you can be T-Wan instead of Timon.
Well, you know what you could have gone with is
Taiwan.
Taiwan, because my nickname is Ty. Could have gone with Taiwan.
There we go.
You
There
could've.
we go. I messed up that joke.
Could have, but you didn't.
Yeah, I messed up that joke.
Here we are. So anyway, we have a fun interview coming off of this.
We do a very fun interview.
Ben, you want to intro that for us?
Yeah, we talked to our good pal Tim Hagerty, author of the forthcoming Tales from the Dugout, and we're going to talk to Tim about this book, which is it's a really fun book, and we had a lot of fun talking to him about it. Here on the Show Before the Show podcast, we are joined by Tim Hagerty, broadcaster for the El Paso Chihuahuas, and more importantly for our purposes right now, the author of the brand new book, or fairly new, let's just call it brand new, Tales from the Dugout, 1001 humorous, inspirational, and wild anecdotes from minor league baseball. Tim, thanks so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Ben. I'm a fan of all three of you, so exciting to be on. And as far as your intro, the book comes out March 28th, so it is brand new.
It is brand new. I saw you on MLB Network a couple weeks ago, and I just, in my mind, this book is existed for a while. I was totally forgetting that the common men and women do not yet have access. March 28th, this book comes out, and it's a really fun one. The subtitle lays it out: 1001 humorous, inspirational, and wild anecdotes from minor league baseball. Tim, you were obviously well told, or you are a great candidate to put this book together, not only because you've been broadcasting since 2004, but you've been writing about baseball and baseball history and quirky stories for quite some time. And I've always enjoyed that line of work of yours. So if you first could go in a little bit to that, how did you get started writing about minor league baseball, the history, and all the absurd, weird, strange things you find there?
It is and has always been my favorite part about baseball is the crazy, unusual stories that happen. I think it's the sport that has the most and best stories to it. As far as this project and how it got started, when researching something else, I've always loved researching baseball history. And when looking into something else, I found this newspaper article from the 1880s that a Texas League game in Austin got delayed when a wild bull ran on the field. And I was just stunned. I wanted to know everything about this, the descriptions of why there was a wild bull near the stadium, what kind of damage it did. And then I thought to myself, well, I do this for a living, and if I've never heard this story, the odds are most fans haven't either. So I began a document compiling stories of the past and present. Got to a point where I had 1,100 stories, didn't really know what to do with it. And one day I was walking by my wife's cookbook, and it said 1001 recipes. And I thought, that's it. That's the number. So at that point, compiled it and whittled it down, and was able to get a book deal, and turned out great.
Yeah, it's a real fun book to read. When you fit 1001 different anecdotes into a single book, you probably don't have much more than 100 words or so about each little incident or anecdote here. Sometimes even less. Was this this must have been an exercise in brevity and really whittling down these stories? Because reading it today on the subway in to work, there were a lot of things that I was just like, oh, I want to know more about that. But also to have a book that's accessible to the average reader and doesn't expand to 1001 pages, I guess you had to be a very judicious editor. See, I don't speak on a mic for a living, such as Tim does.
You're exactly right. From the beginning, I wanted it to have illustrations as well. And I think the publisher, Cider Mill Press, did a great job with that, with the layout. There's a lot of cartoonish illustrations in there. So to have 1001 stories and the illustrations, you're right. The stories had to be short and sweet. I was recently on a different show, and the host, she joked to me, I love this book because the stories are like tweets. Some of them are just a sentence or two each, as you're describing. Each has a catchy headline at the top. But you're right. To pack in that many stories, I had to make them pretty brief and get to the point.
And when you were organizing this, I mean, just looking at the table of contents right now, it's broken down by teams and ballparks, batters and runners, pitchers and fielders, managers and executives, umpires and leagues, fans and tickets, nature and wildlife, and the best of the rest. Did you have those categories in mind ahead of time and then try to find things to fill up those categories? Or was it just, I'm going to get 1001 stories and find the categories later?
It was the second one. I wanted to compile as many stories as possible, get to that point, and then decide what to do with it. So I got to about 1,100 stories, and then it was a matter of either merging some or cutting some out. For example, there was an umpire in 1907 who was arrested for using foul language during a game. And then in the 1930s, there was a player who was arrested for using foul language during a game. I merged those two and made them one story. And by the way, I said not ejected, but arrested. These guys were arrested for saying a bad word during the game.
Very normal use of the judicial system.
Exactly. Priorities. So yeah, from there, as you just described, Sam, outline those chapters, but then there was a bunch that just didn't really have a home. So that's when we came up with the best of the rest. Those are the ones that are just so crazy that there really wasn't a category for them.
And as you're going through these, you're talking about like some of these are tweet, length, the length of a tweet, essentially. Was there any one that you thought like, hey, this is one I could pull out, one or two maybe, that you could pull out and be like, this is a book on its own?
Oh, yeah. The thing that jumps out that really could be a book is just the way umpires were treated in the, I'd say, early 1900s all the way through the 1950s. Many games, they were the only umpire on the field. And this was a wild, almost violent time, to be honest, to be an umpire. The story I've heard on this is that back in the early part of the 1900s, a lot of the men that would go to ball games were laboring workers. They worked at a mine or a construction site. They had these grueling jobs. And during that time, you really couldn't mouth off to your boss. But when you went to the ballpark, that was the one time that you had permission to yell at an authority figure. So there's a story in 1920 in Daytona Beach, and a group of fans got so mad at the umpire, this guy Tiny Parker, that they threw him off a bridge into a river outside the stadium. And this guy, Tiny Parker, just kind of accepted this was part of the job. He showed up the next day and umpired the next game. And the fans were so impressed by that he showed up the next day, and they probably felt some guilt that they took up a collection and bought him some new umpiring gear because his previous gear was soaking wet in the Halifax River. It's the least you can do, guys, if you throw an umpire into a river, is to buy him some new gear.
I was gonna say maybe like a whole new wardrobe, maybe like
Right.
it's not the gear that I would want. I want a new suit to wear to church on Sunday. Like,
Especially because like back in that era, people owned like 4 items of clothing. You know what I mean? Like you wore the same exact thing every day. They couldn't buy this guy like a new cardigan.
Yeah, and was Tiny one of those ironic nicknames? Was this guy like pretty hefty, and it was probably tough to throw him off a bridge if so?
My guess is he was a bigger guy. Exactly.
I was thinking of 2 questions that I was very excited about asking. The first of which was going to be, if you're going to pull one of these stories and make it into its own book, what would it be? And the second one was going to be, Tim, how about the way umpires were treated back in the day? And then
Wow.
you guys covered those both perfectly. The thing that I think really stands out also, and if you're not following Tim on social media, you need to follow him on Twitter, because Tim will come across these incredible stories and he'll post the old, newspaper clippings of what things were like, when they were reported back in the day. And Tim's on Twitter at TD Hagerty. One of the things that always seems to pop up, in addition to like, the umpire was like, hogtied and thrown onto a train car and was sent out of town, never to be seen again. The other thing that's wild to me, Tim, is that minor league baseball teams had live animal mascots regularly, and not like, this is somebody's plucky pooch and these are the new Fountain Town Basset Hounds or whatever. They'd have like bears and monkeys and whatever. Like, what are the most insane live mascot stories that you come across?
So, Tyler, you're a Coloradoan, right? Coloradan?
I am.
So you'll like this one. In 1970, the AAA Denver Bears, of course, pre-Rockies, Denver had a AAA team for a long, long time. And in 1970, the Denver Bears acquired a live bear and put it in a cage in the right field stands with a sign on it that said, "Please don't."
1970s.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
I mean,
because I've seen pictures of old Denver Bears. They were formerly known as the Denver Grizzlies, and then they were the Denver Bears. And I've seen pictures of them with live bears in like 1911. I didn't realize that in the 1970s they were still doing this.
Exactly. I mean, you had to have an employee there to make sure kids aren't sticking their hand in the cage, I would hope.
I'd really like to know what the salary requirement was for the person who was the bear minder. That's a nice minor league front office job. Like, all right, you're going to sell group tickets, and also you get to hang out by the bear cage and make sure nobody gets mauled.
Yeah, I think that's covered by other tasks maybe required.
Yeah, other duties as assigned.
Yeah.
And I do remember reading San Francisco Seals at one point in the old San Francisco Seals of the Pacific Coast League. They had a seal on the premises at one point. I remember reading that at one. Yeah, it was a weird time. We talk about minor league baseball being weird these days, but as Tim's book shows, it was a lot weirder back then.
Yeah, and that's a great example, Ben, of the seal. Another live animal. In 1909, Class A New Orleans Pelicans game, they had a mascot named Henry the Chimpanzee. And as Tyler mentioned earlier, this is not a furry costume chimpanzee. This is a live monkey. And he somehow breaks out of his cage, ran on the field, and chased players around. So the game was delayed a few minutes when a monkey ran around on the field.
My favorite element of that is that the chimpanzee was the mascot for a team named the Pelicans. Not like, well, we're the Chimps, the New Orleans Chimps. Like they're named after a bird, and they're like, I don't know, should we get a monkey? What would that be like? Would that bring people out, put butts in the seats?
So that's an exact example of what would happen. Sometimes you just see these brief stories, and I'd want to know the same thing. Why did this team have a monkey mascot? And sometimes you just run into a dead end trying to find the background on that. There was one, and I did put it in the book, despite efforts to find more details. There was a baseball guide in 1911, I think, and it talked about how this player showed up to the annual winter convention, a winter meetings type of that era, and was threatening a lawsuit because he said that his team hypnotized him and convinced him that they paid him, but that his record showed he was never paid. And when I read this, I thought, I need to know the player, I need to know the team, but I just couldn't find anything else. But I thought the story is so good, so I just wrote around it in a way that said, in 1911, a player, from a professional baseball team said this.
I am absolutely going to the next winter meetings and telling people that Sam Dykstra and Benjamin Hill did that to me. I just want you all to know that in the next winter meetings, I'm going to be like, I was supposed to get this check from Sam and Ben. It never cleared. Tim, ballparks were also really interesting and really weird for a long time, early in the 20th century, late in the 19th century. Did you find anything specifically about this team played in a converted horse lot or something strange that you would never expect to find a baseball game, but facilities wise, they at least attempted to make something work?
Absolutely. I'm thinking of the ballpark in Scranton. They had a really unique outfield fence. Let me get the exact note here. I'm almost there.
I read this today. I read this earlier today.
Yeah, so their outfield fence was made of old railroad boxcars.
Cool.
So that was a good ballpark one.
Yeah,
that actually
Artillery
sounds
Park.
awesome. Artillery Park.
Right here on page 15.
That's I feel like that would be a very scenic ballpark. That'd be a really cool way. I feel like the modern equivalent of that is like shipping containers. I'd go check out a game in a boxcar outfield ballpark.
Yeah, and today's team is named the Rail Riders.
Yeah, exactly. Like that seems very fitting.
Bring it back.
So a couple other good ballpark stories in the 1950s. And again, this is, we're not talking about 1800s, 1950s, somewhat fairly recent. The Welch miners in West Virginia had a cement sidewalk that went through their left field grass in fair territory. Imagine a prospect running over a sidewalk.
That's an easy place to track down fly balls. Especially if you're wearing spikes and then all of a sudden, like you've got that gritty, scratchy sound of like when you have metal shoes on walking around on concrete. That's awful. The baseball's interminable ability to just like try to play anywhere is always fascinating to me. You said when we started that you had 1,100 stories and you whittled them down. What was the toughest one to cut? Was it like fairly easy that you knew there were some that either were going to be too difficult to research or some that probably just didn't have the legs to get put in? And those ones, obviously, I assume were fairly easy to cut out. Were there any that you kind of agonized over of like, I want people to know this story, but it just doesn't fit?
For sure. There were some stories that were so good, but the facts just didn't add up upon trying to get second sources that I had to trim them. Baseball Digest, which has archives available online that goes all the way back to the 1940s, they used to interview players, and players would just tell these wild stories. You grab a major league veteran in 1960, and you'd say, well, in 1945, I was in Albany, and this happened. Of course, back then, they don't have the internet, and they just print it. Whereas now, I'm able to see, well, okay, on that guy's baseball reference page, he wasn't in Albany in 1945. He was there in 1944. And if I just didn't have the facts to back it up, it didn't feel right to put it in. But that left me with some tough decisions as well, where if you did have a good source, but the story didn't seem quite believable. For example, in the 1800s, 1890s, there was a Pennsylvania state game. And allegedly, this team ran out of bats. So a batter walked over and grabbed an axe, because every dugout just has an axe sitting there.
Very common dugout paraphernalia.
Exactly. He claims he takes the axe into the batter's box, takes a swing, hits the ball, and splits it in half. And he claims half of the ball went flying over the fence, and the umpire ruled it half of a run. I love everything about this story. The half of a run part is funny. It's easy to understand. But you guys have covered a bunch of games like I have. That just doesn't sound like it really happened.
There's no way.
Exactly.
There's no way.
So
I want to believe it, but there's no way.
No.
I didn't know what to do. I love this story, but it's just not adding up. So I decided the word reportedly would clear me. So I wrote in there, reportedly this happened. And there are a bunch of newspaper articles that say it did. So I figured that kind of covered me.
Yeah, so it made the cut. The axe story made
The cut. There's a Benism for you.
You know what else is also very funny to me about when you hear like these old timey stories? Everybody had such a quick wit back in the day. Like an umpire, you slice a baseball in half, you hit half over the wall, and the umpire's response is half a run. Like that, you were that quick witted umpire, Tiny Jones, whatever your name was.
Parker.
Sorry, Tiny.
Come on, we're all big Tiny Parker fans.
Well, Tim, as you're going through all this stuff, I mean, considering your job is to be a broadcaster, how much are you putting yourself in the shoes of like people who had to call games then? Like imagining what you would have done if you saw a guy walk up with an axe, or if all of a sudden the umpire was being carried off, like how you would cover that in the day. How much are you viewing that through those lenses?
For sure. And that especially would come true when I found a great El Paso story. My full-time job, as you guys mentioned in the intro, I'm the broadcaster for the El Paso Chihuahuas. And El Paso has some great history to it. In 1938, there was a Class D game here, and the home plate umpire took off his mask, put down his chest protector, walked off the field, and never came back. He said, "I'm done." So I'd imagine calling that game, and the umpire is to the warning track, and he's gone. Not coming back. It's like, you're right. There are times where I'd envision what it would be like. And there's even a couple stories where I did have to do that. In 2007, I was the broadcaster for AA Mobile, and we were in Montgomery. And Mobile had a pitcher, Matt Elliott, who allowed a game-tying home run. And he got so upset after that half inning that he went into the dugout bathroom and slammed the door in frustration. And it broke the lock, and he locked himself in the bathroom and couldn't come out. He couldn't get out until a half hour after the game ended. Montgomery's fire department had to come knock the door down. That was an unusual
I have to ask
thing.
this question. Had he been lifted from the game already at that point? Or
No,
did they have to
exactly.
make a pitching change because he was locked in the bathroom?
And that's where the play-by-play part came in, because an entire half inning passes. Now it's Mobile's turn to go back in the field again, and there's no pitcher. But there's 8 position players, but there's no one warming up. And the manager then, Brett Butler, is literally scratching his head, talking to the umpires, wondering what to do. They had to bring in a new pitcher because he got locked in the bathroom.
Is that like an injury replacement? Like, did the new guy get enough time to warm up, or were they just like, sorry, dude, 7 pitches, he's locked in the bathroom? That's not an inry. That's talking about a weird jurisdiction for an umpire.
Yeah, probably the umpire's field, treat it like an injury. But there was a bunch of national media after that one. I think Sports Illustrated said he was locked in.
There it is. Was that during your stint at Sports Illustrated, Ben? Or
Yeah, but what I was going to say is I do remember writing a blog post about that moment. Maybe that was one of the first times I was ever, in touch with Tim, who's, provided great information through the years for what I do. And, the kind of sensibility he has is what leads to a book such as Tales from the Dugout, which features 1001 separate tales. And even though we've been focusing on the truly more wild, woolly, almost pure anarchy anecdotes of the 19th century, early 20th century, like that bathroom story illustrates, there's a lot of modern stuff in there as well. Plenty of present day stuff, things related to minor league promotions. And I would like to point out, and we're all waiting for our royalty checks down the line, that myself, Ben Hill, Sam Dykstra sitting to my right, and Tyler Maughan in Colorado are all listed as sources for this book.
You are. I was going to tell you guys that.
That's amazing.
MILB.com. What's great is just the archive that you guys have, where, for example, I made a note to myself, Brevard County Manatee's first pitches record. And you guys might remember, I think it was 2005. They had this day-long record-breaking promotion where they invited anyone to come over and throw a ceremonial first pitch. And they got up to more than 4,200 first pitches. They had local radio stations telling people to peel off the interstate, go to the stadium, throw a pitch, and then go back on the highway. And the best place to find articles like that is MILB.com. So I did put all 3 of your names in there, because just when pinpointing details for a story like that, MILB.com was the best place to find it. But you're right, Ben, I really tried to put in a lot of current stories as well. For example, in both 2017 and 2021, the Carolina Mudcats in Zebulon, North Carolina, they decided to play their entire game on the final day of the season using one bat, just one bat for all 9 players.
Just
and they
hand it
won
off
both of
from
those
the on-deck
games.
circle. Wow, that's impressive. Yeah, just pass it off in the on-deck circle. Whoever needs it next, just keep the line moving. That's impressive, though, to win both the games.
Yeah, and that's what, what Ben has done so well with cataloging all of his different minor league ballpark stops. I love unique features of ballparks. So in the book, there's an entry about why the Albuquerque Isotopes have Simpson statues, or why the Nashville Sounds have a big guitar scoreboard, among other examples like that.
And Tim, speaking of going to kind of modern examples, I mean, this year is going to be another new year in minor league baseball. And as you're covering AAA games, as you're calling them, one thing that's coming is the ABS system and also the challenge system for half the year. Things are going to be split up this year. What are you anticipating about that change, trying to get used to it and calling games differently the first half of the week versus the second half of the week?
Leave it to Sam to transition from umpires being thrown into rivers into
geez,
like a
Sam,
real
downer.
journalistic question.
And now we have robot umpires. Yeah, that's
But we know that the water, very bad for robot umpires.
there's no coming back from
Something
that
to
one.
keep in mind, Tiny
The equipment's
Parker,
definitely more expensive.
AI version of Tiny Parker, something to keep in mind.
So last year in the Pacific Coast League, we had the automatic ball strike system. And understandably, many fans weren't aware of that. So it was really funny to be in any ballpark and hear fans shouting at the home plate umpire. They had to be thinking in their head, this is not me making this call. Why are you so mad at me? And it reached a point where one umpire here in El Paso, with a smile at one point, actually turned around and pointed to his earpiece at a fan saying, hey, my earpiece is telling me what's a ball and what's a strike. And by the way, these robots are right, 99% of the time. But as far as this year, yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. As Sam mentioned, Friday through Sundays, it's the challenge system where each team will get 3 challenges. The pitcher, the batter, or the catcher must do it and must do it instantly. You can't look over to the dugout and get advice on whether they should challenge a pitch. I saw one game like this last year. The Pacific Coast League Championship game had this rule in play, and it really was instant. And the thing I'm looking forward to is Las Vegas, where that AAA championship game was. They did a good job of putting up right on their video board the actual moving ball when they replayed what happened and whether or not it clipped the zone. And the public address announcer would announce, as this was happening, the previous pitch is under review. And when the announcer said that, it's like the fans just got so locked in on the video board that I think the challenge system, we talk about it for efficiency, but it actually is a fun fan interaction thing too. All of a sudden you're told, okay, something's happening here. And they're almost like rooting for the digital ball as it's approaching the strike zone, whether it's going to hurt or help their team. So I'm looking forward to that. And it is interesting how it's divided up per day of the week, where now a player has to be conscious of what day of the week it is while they're batting, which sounds funny, but you guys know ball players, so oftentimes they really don't have to know that. They don't have to think in their head what day of the week it is. They're just so really focused on that pitcher.
Yeah, that is a very good point. All right, Tim, last one from me, and we're going to go back to the fun side. Geez, Sam. This is a very cliche and a dumb question, but I have to ask it. Do you have a favorite of all the 1001 stories? Is there one that just sticks out to you that you're like, how does the story get any better than that?
Probably my favorite is the one that took me the most time to track down the details. I got to talk to participants. In 1978, there was a fly ball that disappeared. It was a AA Eastern League game. Bristol is at Jersey City, and there were some big names in this game. Wade Boggs is playing for Bristol, Ricky Henderson for Jersey City. And early in the game, a right-handed batter hit a high fly ball to right field, and the ball vanished. It didn't land in the stands. It didn't go over the fence. It didn't land on the field. And I know it sounds crazy, but I talked to an employee who was there. I talked to a player who was on the field, and they described it the same way. Everyone was just sort of in disbelief. I even got to correspond with a fan who was there and said the same thing. So the umpires got together. Understandably, they don't know what the ruling is when a ball disappears.
Is there a rule?
There is now. They called it a double.
Okay. Interesting.
But I think that's my favorite because it's funny. It's easy to understand. There's some big names involved. And it really was so fun for me to try and track down what day this took place. This was my hobby in the 2017 offseason, was just finding out who worked at Roosevelt Stadium in Jersey City, New Jersey in 1978. And as you guys know from articles you've written, if you dig hard enough, you can find it. That's a blessing of social media and the internet, is people are findable now, and they're really excited to talk to you. So I even got to email with Wade Boggs about that, and Boggs confirmed it, that the ball vanished.
And there was never an explanation. Like they never, we were tearing down the ballpark years later and we found it. Like this thing just disappeared.
No, the one thing I got was that there was reportedly a kid behind the outfield fence who was holding a ball, but they later showed that was not the game ball. So that was a theory for a while.
Weird.
One internet commenter told me that David Copperfield is apparently from the Jersey City area. Wondered if he made it vanish.
Yeah, and I believe this is the way that there's just so many rabbit holes to go down in minor league baseball. That's the same stadium, I believe, in which Jackie Robinson made his minor league baseball debut on the road as a member of the Montreal Royals. And I've run into that. I don't want to quite say it's a problem, but so many times through the years when I'm writing something, I'm researching one piece of information, and then 10 minutes later, you're 4 levels deep into something else. But it really is a joy to find that kind of stuff. And that's why this book is a joy to read, because if you like baseball history, the weirder, quirkier side of it, you've got 1001 tales to read about. And I'd recommend listening to Tim as well. Call El Paso Chihuahuas games on, MILB TV, internet radio, wherever fine El Paso Chihuahuas games are broadcast. And I'm sure
Tim really is one of the best in the biz, by the way. If you want to listen to a great broadcaster, tune in to Tim. He's fantastic. Follow him on Twitter as well, at TD Hagerty. And also, if you're a minor league baseball writer, you get overjoyed when you're like, I got to cover this El Paso story. That means I can text him. I'm going to have no trouble getting this interview. So he's also fantastic in that regard. But seriously, one of the best in the business.
That is true. So to close, even though we've talked about this book a lot, Tim, I'll let you promote it one final time. Where can people get this, and just how much will they enjoy it?
Well, thank you. It's available on pre-order for Amazon, on Amazon right now, and anywhere books are sold. It'll be in stores on March 28th. But I'm told that pre-orders really help momentum. So if you want to help me out, pre-order this as you hear this, and that would be a great help. But I don't want to brag, so I won't talk about like the stories and the writing. But one thing I will say, Ben, is I think it's a really good-looking book. It is everything I hoped for with that. I really hoped for a visual book, cool outlines, some fun cartoonish images. And I think that the publisher, Cider Mill Press, really came through on the illustrations. So I think people of all ages will like it.
Well, there you have it. Tales from the Dugout, 1001 humorous, inspirational, and wild anecdotes from minor league baseball. We thank the author of this very entertaining book, Tim Hagerty, for joining us on the podcast. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you all.
When you want your spring break to feel like... and your kids' pool day to feel like... and your hotel bed to feel like... ooh, and room service to feel like... because at Hilton, hospitality feels like...
Your cabana's ready. Would you like fresh towels?
It matters where you stay. Book now at Hilton.com. Hilton, for the stay.
Once again, you can follow Tim Hagerty on Twitter at TD Hagerty, Hagerty. And he is just the great. That's one of my favorite interviews that we've ever done on this show. And now I got to read the book. Now I got to get it. I got to pre-order today.
No, go ahead.
Sam and I are tripping over each other right now.
To just praise Tim Hagerty, really, is what it comes down to.
He's so great.
I feel like he told so many stories, but the fact that there's 1,000.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, we're going to ruin all the good parts. He told us like 8 stories. That means there's 993 more. That's fantastic.
And they're all on that level, too.
Yeah.
Like, I know he was playing favorites with some of those. And I definitely want to investigate that lost fly ball.
Oh,
what do you guys actually think happened? If you had to actually have a theory.
I don't know, but I remember reading an article about that, which Tim must have written, because I remember reading about that recently, because in addition to this book, where the write-ups are very short about each weird little moment, Tim has written a lot, especially for the Sporting News. I still subscribe to a Baseball Digest, and one week or 1 month I was looking through the issue and there was a Tim Hagerty story in there. So he does a lot of more longer form writing, and I think we're gonna have to consult his own article on that, and not that it comes to any definite conclusions, and I don't have one myself for sure.
Tyler, do you have a theory?
How close is Jersey City to the Bermuda Triangle?
Pretty far, I think.
Okay. How far does the Bermuda Triangle's power reach? Have we investigated that? I don't know. Like, what could be a rational explanation? My only thought was like, I don't know, maybe a bird swooped down and thought it was a smaller bird and caught it. But like, you have to be a big bird. Like, I've got a baseball sitting on my desk. That's not a small object to just snare out of the sky. You can't, like, a ordinary crow is not flying by, swooping in and snatching a baseball out of the air. That's got to be like a big bird of prey. It's got to be a raptor, if you will. I don't think they have a whole lot of like pterodactyls flying around Jersey City.
No, like my thought might be a pelican.
But
pelicans don't really exist in Jersey, to bring it back to
True.
New Orleans Pelicans that we were talking about before. But like something that has a beak that can naturally catch a ball like that.
Yeah.
I don't know though.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Got caught up in a jet stream and just
kept on going
was
somewhere.
shredded. Jet was flying from Newark over Jersey City.
Yeah, some things are just unknowable, and perhaps we were not meant to understand. And I think we just have to embrace the unknowing and be okay with our uncertainty, and understand that life doesn't always have answers, just a series of questions.
So if you could go ahead and play the X-Files song underneath that, and we can just loop that over and over and over again.
Ben, can you give us a little bit more elaboration on that? I'll bring in some tunes behind it.
I think I said everything I need to say. That was very profound and philosophical, and I'm just going to end it on that high note, because anything else I would say would be redundant. But I really do believe that I'm able, once I get going, to cut to the core of life's hardest questions and articulate them better than most, or perhaps all.
He's not wrong, folks. Well, let's move on. Let's talk about some things that are going on in the world of minor league baseball as of right now. There is a news item that comes with a little bit of surprise, and that is from the Northwest League, where there's going to be a new ballpark for the Hillsboro Hops. Now, if you're like me, you're thinking to yourself, Hillsboro, that team just made its debut like last season. Not really. It's been like a decade. But this is somewhat surprising, Ben, that Hillsboro is setting the groundwork for a new ballpark. Give us the whole situation there.
Yeah, I mean, Hillsboro Hops debuted in 2013, bringing minor league baseball back to the Portland market after a couple years without it. Actually, that Portland team, the Portland Beavers, went to Tucson and then went to El Paso. And Tim Hagerty, who we just talked to, was the broadcaster for the Beavers in their final seasons, then Tucson, then El Paso. But there wasn't baseball in Portland for a couple years. Hillsboro Hops debuted in 2013, bringing it back. And their ballpark, Ron Tonkin Field, opened in 2013 in conjunction with the debut of the Hillsboro Hops. They were a short season team when they debuted, but starting in 2021, the Northwest League shifted to high A and full season. So Ron Tonkin Field over the last couple of years has been getting more use than originally planned. But regardless, to have a ballpark that opened 10 years ago, the team that plays in that ballpark to then say, we're getting a new ballpark, that is surprising. And, in the team's press release, and I'm sure we'll cover this story more as the months and even years go on, this ballpark is scheduled to open in 2025. But the team says in their press release, the original intent was to renovate Ron Tonkin Field to meet the new MLB standards, the facility standards. And if you may recall, we had a whole episode on facility standards and renovations just a few weeks back. It's something a lot of teams are doing right now, renovating their ballparks to meet the MLB facility requirements. But the Hops, when they looked into it, they say, quote, after the completion of preliminary design and analysis, it was determined that it will be more cost effective to design and build a new ballpark. So that new ballpark, as opposed to spending a ton of money in renovations, they're just going for the entire new ballpark. Ron Tonkin Field is part of a larger athletic complex So that will still continue to be used, but just not by the Hops. And the new ballpark will be on the northwest side of that pre-existing athletic complex. So the team is more or less moving across the street. But now, as opposed to a relatively no-frills ballpark that was part of a larger complex, now it's going to be a standalone facility. And the Hops are calling it, a year-round entertainment venue. So of course Ron Tonkin Field was not the kind of place where you'd really have many outside events besides baseball, but this one will be, I'm sure, much larger, available for things beyond the Hillsboro Hops playing baseball games. And, obviously we'll bring the team up to speed with the facility requirements by building a whole new ballpark that will clearly be in line with them. So that ballpark is now slated for 2025. We've talked about it a lot on the podcast. No new minor league ballparks in 2023. No new minor league ballparks in 2024, at least unless I'm missing something that's going to be happening really fast. But in 2025, now we have Hillsboro, we have Salt Lake, we have places like Knoxville, Chattanooga, Richmond in the works. Stadium timelines are notorious in that they are subject to change, but it really does look that I think beginning in 2025 and almost certainly in 2026, 2027, we're going to be seeing a lot of new ballparks after this little drought period we're in right now.
And speaking of relatively new ballparks, I mean, one of the most brand new on the minor league landscape insofar as that we've gotten new ballparks the last few years is in Amarillo. Amarillo has come out with a food-themed identity, is what I guess you would call it.
Oh, definitely.
You have to call it that, yes. It's the calf fries. And Ben, I want you to describe what a calf fry is for anybody who does not live in the Amarillo area.
Right. Calf fries, also known as Rocky Mountain oysters. I would say
I am taking exception to this other name.
The Rocky Mountain oysters.
Rocky Mountain native. I am what is this? Calf fries. What is this?
So you believe they should be called Rocky Mountain oysters nationally?
Absolutely, I do. We call it New York style pizza, don't we?
Or New England clam chowder.
New England clam chowder.
If anybody tried to change it from New England clam chowder, I would fight them. So I feel you, Tom.
I mean, I guess there is Manhattan chowder, but that's not the same kind.
It's not the same. It's not
exactly.
The same, it's worse.
Exactly. Maybe calf fry is different. Maybe it's like, this is the... Never mind. I'm not
going to... Go ahead. Finish that sentence.
I'm not going to make any jokes related to what this food item is.
Right. Well, what is a calf fry? I mean, we got to get to the heart of the matter. You'd think
we're not getting to the heart of the matter.
Well, right. We got to get to the something of the matter. You'd think that by clicking on the team's press release, they'd say a calf fry. They proudly say a calf fry is. Instead, there's a quote that just says, if you have lived in Texas or the Southwest for any amount of time, you know about calf fries. Kind of like, we don't want to write what it is. We're dancing around it. Calf fries are a castration byproduct that are then fried up, coated with batter, fried up, and eaten as a hearty Texas Panhandle snack. So they're going to be serving calf fries at the ballpark on these 6 select dates in which the Amarillo Sod Poodles play as the calf fries. Brandy Oast did the logo set. And you can see why the team maybe didn't, go too far in terms of explaining what it was or being too over the top in their presentation of the logo. But it is one that gets people talking. And in that broad general way, what I do love about minor league baseball is like these promotions give you an inroads to learning about things that you might not have known of at any point in time. I covered this in my newsletter, the Ben's Biz Beat newsletter, and I did point out that I've seen they weren't called calf fries, but at a Missoula Osprey game a few years back, they serve a platter called Bats and Balls, in which the fries are bats. And yeah. And Boise
pretty
Hawks.
Good, Missoula.
Yeah, Boise Hawks just had a Rocky Mountain oysters platter as well. And I attended the very last Colorado Springs Sky Sox games. When they were a AAA game, they played their last season in 2018. And then the AAA team was going to be leaving and a Pioneer League team was coming in, and they were having a name the team contest for that incoming Pioneer League team, which eventually became the Vibes. But one of the finalists was Rocky Mountain Oysters as their actual all the time name, the Rocky Mountain Oysters, which they did not go with. But when I was in Colorado Springs in 2018, tied in with the fact that they could rename their team the Rocky Mountain Oysters. They were serving a Rocky Mountain Oyster burger, which was a hamburger topped with Rocky Mountain Oysters. So it is something that is rare on the minor league landscape, but certainly not uncommon. The calf fry terminology is, I think, more of a Texas Panhandle sort of thing, or at least Texas in general. And I don't think they've announced the dates yet in which they're playing as the calf fries, but they're going to be doing it 6 times in 2023. And yeah, it's a half decent chunk of the home schedule.
They did say Saturday, April 15th will be their first one.
Oh, you got it. Yeah, I did not.
Also, May 13th, June 5th, July 16th, August 4th, and August 31st. And on June 4th, if you want, you too can get a Calf Fries replica jersey if you were one of the first 1,500 fans in attendance. And that's just nuts. Guys, have either of you haven't had, I'm assuming.
Well, I did once, and it wasn't at a ballpark. They were actually called lamb fries.
Oh, interesting.
I went to Oklahoma City for the first time to see what was then the Oklahoma City Redhawks. And I don't forget who told me about it, but, they were like, oh, go to this place, the Cattleman's Cafe, just kind of a iconic place to get lunch, and lamb fries were their specialty. And, as well as, a lot of steaks. It's cattle country in general. But I just said, okay, I'll try it. And I ordered the lamb fries, and I don't really remember much about them, which I think speaks to the fact that if you didn't know what they were, they just kind of taste like a breaded and fried chicken.
Yeah, it's just like any breaded or fried meat.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing. But then I got celiac disease, and one of the great tragedies of that in going gluten-free is that I could not then go on to eat calf fries or Rocky Mountain oysters or prairie oysters or whatever.
That is one of the great tragedies.
Truly one of the great. That's what I said to the doctor when I was diagnosed. You mean I can't eat calf fries? Like, are there gluten-free calf fries? How am I going to do this? But
your doctor was
I've
like,
been calf fry free, lamb fry free, Rocky Mountain oyster free since 2012.
They do sell them at Coors Field, but I know I had a friend visiting the country who had read about them. He wanted to get a Rocky Mountain oyster po' boy, is the way they serve them at Coors Field. And I remember the amount of people that he asked at Coors Field who were like, oh yeah, I think we have them. I think they're at this concession stand, whatever. Like, there was one concession stand that had them, and it definitely gave me the impression of like, how long have these things been sitting here? Because no one seems to know that this is even available here, and that's a little frightening. But calf fries, I guess it's a rite of passage for anybody who is truly going to be an Amarillo Sod Poodles fan. Now you too have to become part of the calf fries phenomenon. Sam, would you try it?
On a dare, like 15-year-old version of me would do anything for $20, or eat anything for $20. So like maybe, if it was like for the podcast, we'll see. I'm trying to make plans on what ballparks I'm going to this year, and Amarillo might be on that list. And if I need to do something for the content, I would think about it.
Okay.
But
you heard it here first. Saudis, Sam's in. Make him the finest platter of bull testicles that you can find. Although I am a little confused that they call them calf fries. Does that mean that there's some sort of veal element here? Like, are these from calves? That's a little weird to me.
A bull calf, I think, is what it is.
Yeah, but isn't a calf automatic? My fiance's in the next room. Her dad literally owns a cattle ranch. I guess I should probably just ask her. But I don't. That's like, I don't know. That's getting a little weird. It's like the young ones. I don't want to.
I mean, your area calls them oysters. What do you? Don't.
Sam, you got to gussy some things up to make people eat in hard times. You're a minor. It's the 1880s. You're gonna eat anything, and somebody tells you, it's like, here's a delicacy. It's an oyster.
Yeah, euphemisms help us all get by.
Ben, what else is going on? What's in the newsletter? What else is coming up?
That's pretty much all that's going on. I mean, a lot of my time right now is finishing up the Ballpark Guide project and going through promo schedules. I've been trying to tweet out some of the best ones I've been finding, but really a lot of it is getting all my proverbial ducks in the row for the start of the season. The newsletter does come out every Thursday. The Ben's Biz Beat You can subscribe on MILB.com or just get in touch with me if you want that link. But I think that's about all I've got for now. I think a new ballpark and calf fries, that's just a heck of a 1-2 combo.
That's a big assignment. You can keep up with all of it, of course, and you can sign up for the Ben's Biz Beat newsletter at MILB.com. And that'll do it. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Tyler.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Miners. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Miners, in which all of you out there in Radioland must identify the legitimate historical ball club hiding amidst the fraudulent pair. One once sparkled on the diamond. The others never even toiled in obscurity. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball teams did at one time exist. A, the Marfa Cowboys. B, the Lexington Patriots. C, the Salinas Packers. It's good if you picked C, the Salinas Packers, who played the whole 9 yards in 8 California League seasons during the second half of the 20th century. Salinas, the seat of Monterey County, a major agricultural hub, the primary setting of John Steinbeck's East of Eden, and the home of the National Steinbeck Center, unboxed the Packers in 1954, 5 years after the sun set on the city's Sunset League entry, the Salinas Colts, who, thanks to a mid-season relocation, were enjoying Tijuana sunrises before the end of the 49 campaign. But the Cal League was in its heyday when the so-called Salad Bowl of the world dished up the Packers. Like many minor circuits, it underwent a rebirth after the war, and it was filled with both future and former major leaguers. In '54, Salinas' first season as the Packers, the team that finished directly ahead of them, the Channel City Oilers, featured Al Gianfrido, who was a celebrity for the catch he made for the Brooklyn Dodgers in the 1947 World Series, taking an extra base hit away from Joe DiMaggio. The Packers, however, had no stars of that caliber step into the box. The big three for Salinas, 7th out of 8 teams that year, was Howie Goss, George Genovese, and Paul Pettit, each of whom played in the majors but who add up to a big league WAR of -4, the equivalent of wet cardboard. Things weren't much more positive for the Packers until 1957, when they packaged up and carried home a Cal League title, thanks in part to the efforts of catcher William Gilmore and right-hander Chuck Estrada. Veda Pinson and the Visalia Redlegs ran away with just about the whole regular season, but the Packers had the postseason in the bag. But in '58, Salinas was lacking for salt, and the sweet times turned sour. The club finished a miserable 53-85, last place, and disappeared when the Cal League contracted from 8 to 6 teams the next season. But the Packers appeared again for 3 seasons in the '70s, taking first place in '73, but failed to preserve their goods at the box office. And that's how the Packers were shipped off. Now, on to the question for next time. Which of these teams had an odd appetite in the minors of yesteryear? A, the Battle Creek No-Meats. B, the Longview Cannibals. C, the Montpelier Maple Suckers. Want to know the answer? Open wide. Or tune into the next Ghosts of the Miners. But for now, you'll have to excuse me. My producer Ben Hill is getting ready for St. Paddy's Day, and I've got to hide his bagpipes.
Saying goodbye on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast. We are coming up real quickly on Minor League Baseball opening day. And with that, very first episode in the month of April will be our fan-centric episode. We've already gotten emails from tons of people explaining their love for the Show Before the Show podcast. Obviously, I mean, who doesn't? As well as just from Minor League Baseball in general. And you can get in touch with us, podcast@milb.com. Give us your story of how you found the podcast, some of your favorite moments, some things you love about minor league baseball, all of that. And also what stuff you would make Sam Dykstra eat for $20.
What is your regional delicacy that I could visit and have?
What gross thing could Sam devour?
Yeah. Or just fun thing. It could be a nice thing. Like Ben and I were talking earlier this week. Norfolk announced a new food-based identity for the year based on the Orange Crush.
Right, the Squeezers.
The Squeezers, which is just like a nice, delightful alcoholic drink. I would try that for $20. We don't have to keep the weird stuff.
No, you're not going to get paid to have delicious stuff, Sam. That's not how this works.
I said I would do anything for $20. That's my limit here. Or that's my floor.
Sam's like, yeah, I mean, if you want to give me $20 and delicious slices of pizza, I'd be fine with that. That's not how this works. You don't get good stuff in compensation for money. The money is in exchange for eating weird stuff.
Okay, Don Draper. That's what the money is for.
That's what the money is for. But get in touch with us, podcast at MILB.com. And we're really excited. We're going to nail those down and do those interviews and get a fan-centric episode of this friendly minor league baseball podcast, because we are coming up on 400 episodes of this show real soon, which is super cool. So excited to get that to you. And for those dudes in New York City, Sam Dykstra and Benjamin Hill, my name is Tyler Mon. We'll catch you next week.